Hello, friends, and thank you for joining us for episode number 30 of a Disney Life podcast. It's hard for me to believe we're already at episode 30 and that we are closing out our first year here of a Disney Life. If you're just joining us, thank you so much for popping in. And if you are one of our faithful listeners, we truly appreciate you and the time that you've spent with us listening and chatting about Disney this year. We hope that you'll stick with us. My name is Missy, and I am joined with my co host, Rachel, this morning. Hi, Rachel.
Good morning, Missy.
So, Rachel has three little kiddos at home. This is a crazy busy week for her with the Christmas holiday. So, we decided we would squeeze in a special little episode this week rather than a traditional episode with our regular segments. Our episode is going to consist entirely of today's top five. So, if you were with us last week, you know that we recorded while I was on vacation with my family down at Walt Disney World in Orlando. And we kind of had a shorter episode that week without a top five. So we're kind of making up for it this week, I feel. By our entire content being a top five. So closing out the year this year, it's hard to believe that we have already wrapped up our first year of a Disney Life. Now, of course, we didn't start airing episodes until I think it was May, right, Rachel?
Yeah, it was May.
So we didn't get a full year in, but 2025 will always be a special time for us because it's when we finally decided to take the leap year and start this podcast to share with all of you and our friends in the Disney community and the travel community. So we decided that for today, we were going to look back on 2025 and our favorite travel moments of the years. As always, we don't know what each other's list consists of. So hopefully they won't be all the five same moments. I don't think they will be because I know Rachel was not included in all of mine, but she is in some. So
Same here, yeah.
I guess we will go ahead and roll right into things with our top five travel memories of 2025. So, Rachel, do you want to get us started with one of your memories? And also, mine are in no particular order. Actually, they are in a particular order. It's calendar order. So, I started with
Okay.
January. So, the first few of mine will be things that we haven't discussed here at all yet because it was before we were recording and experiences that we haven't shared with our listeners yet. Are yours in order of
Well, I'll do that too.
importance
I'll do
or
calendar order. I can do that
okay.
easily. Mine, I guess, would start out in February. We were actually
Okay.
down together at Walt Disney World. And I said when we were hanging out in the cabin, the Cascade cabins at Copper Creek Villas at Wilderness Lodge. First of all, I've always wanted to go into one of those cabins, and this was my opportunity. We had a couple of days, was not staying there, but we had a couple of days where Tammy, who has been on the show, she was. And so we hung out in that cabin. And there was one night in particular, we hung out pretty late in the cabin. And it was a beautiful evening. We were outside enjoying the covered porch, and there's a hot tub there. And it just a lot of good memories with good friends, a lot of laughter, a whole lot of laughter. And so that was a different trip. No park time during that trip. It was all resort time. But it's just good when you have a group of friends that you don't get to see often, just to have downtime and to relax in your favorite place in the world. It was a very special memory for me.
So it definitely didn't hurt that the time that you had some downtime to relax with your friends was in an absolutely stunning private cabin at
Right.
Walt Disney World. So that made it extra special. Yeah, I think this is definitely was a bucket list item for me. And we're so fortunate that with the groups that we travel with, we're able to experience things like this. So that actually is my one memory on the list that did include you. It's out of calendar order because it was technically was I think February when we were there, and I had a January thing for my list. But I'll jump ahead and
Okay.
chat about that now. Just for the sake of keeping everything smooth here and not having to backtrack. So, yeah, specifically, my most favorite memory was being able to be out in the porch area. So, of course, if you haven't been in these cabins before, they do have a screened in porch. And they are pretty similar to the bungalows over at the Polynesian. But to me, the one big difference is that the Polynesian bungalows have plunge pools, while the Cascade cabins at Copper Creek have hot tubs. So, being that we were there in February, I thoroughly enjoyed an evening spent with friends out chatting and sipping on some drinks at the picnic table, but mostly in the hot tub. So, That was definitely one of my top memories of 2025. Rachel, I'm a little surprised that you didn't mention, to me, it's actually where this podcast was born. I
Oh, it
don't
was.
know
Yes,
if you
you are right.
remember,
It was.
right? So when we first started seriously talking about doing this, and Rachel said to me, "So what do it was something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, what do I need to do to get you to agree to do a podcast?" And I was like, you just did it. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's just do it. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. No, like I just said, it was February and it was May before we were actually publishing our episodes, but we did eventually get there. So
Yeah.
to me, that was a really big part of this year because it started this exciting part of our Disney travels and the Disney life together that we have with all of our friends and family that we travel with. So to me, those Cascade cabins at Copper Creek at Disney's Wilderness Lodge are where a Disney Life podcast was born.
That is true. Wow.
Of the list there. Out
Yeah.
of order of my strange order, I guess I make no sense, but it all worked out to get that out of the way right off.
Okay, so take us back to your January moment then.
Okay. So for my second one, because the cabin stay in the hot tub was my favorite. Oh, also, I just want to mention, depending on where your cabin is, you'll get one of two very exciting things happening. You may see the fireworks if you're on one side of the property, or if you're on the other side, you may be able to catch the electrical water pageant. For me, it's a toss up, which I'd want to see. You would think the fireworks are like the quintessential Disney park, Disney experience nighttime activity. But I just absolutely love the electrical water pageant. It's one of my favorite things in all of Disney World. I love the history of it because it's been around since the very beginning, the opening days of the park. I love that it's still so authentic with what it originally was. It's not something that they've changed out over the years. I kind of hold my breath waiting to see if there's ever going to be an update. I worry. Are we
Right.
one day going to change this over from the traditional like seven seas atmosphere to like, now there's princesses lighting up on
Yeah,
the
at
lake.
least
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no IP, Disney, do not IP this one.
yes, don't IP this one. Keep your hands off. So, so on this particular trip, we were on the side where you could hear that thing blasting. It was pretty cool to catch a glimpse
Yeah.
of that from out there. And then, of course, it sails along over to the Fort Wilderness campground from there. So all right, on to my January one. So Rachel and I had this very early February group trip planned, but my family and I were really looking for a time to just kind of escape the busyness of regular life at home. And we decided mid January that we were going to head down the last weekend of January just for 2 nights. Now, for me, it's the shortest Disney trip I've ever taken. I'm coming from Pennsylvania. You kind of have to make it worth the cost of the flight and all of the expenses that go along with it to get there. It was my oldest daughter's senior year of high school at that point. She's in college now. And we knew our days were numbered for being able to sneak away for Disney trips. So it was a very last minute thing. We decided we were going to fly down just for 2 nights so we could spend a day at the Festival of the Arts. So that trip and that day in particular is my next very cherished memory from 2025 because it was just the four of us. And of course, we love having other family and friends and everybody along with us, but we don't often do trips for just four anymore. And being that we were, starting up the second half of senior year for my kiddo was like really tugging at my heartstrings. Probably would have
Yeah.
done anything for her at that point, still will. But we just had the best day. We were able to get a great discounted rate last minute at Disney's Beach Club Resort, which coincidentally was where Rachel and I stayed during that February trip. I think I
Yeah.
really only had a day or two. I don't think it was 48 hours at home turnaround. It ended up being between these two trips, but I did
Wow.
have something it was necessary for me to be at home during that time. So it was a crazy week there for me, 2 Disney trips in a week. And that actually happened to me twice this year. Now that I think about it, it kind of repeated itself in January with another, or July rather, with another situation. But I guess that's why we call this a Disney life here, because we truly do focus a lot on Disney
Yeah.
in our travels. And we're willing to wait to the last minute to plan things in order to get those last minute deals, discounts, cheaper airfare, and that kind of thing to make it work. So we were at the beach club, which set us up perfectly to be able to walk into the international gateway entrance of Epcot. And we just strolled around and enjoyed the festival food. And we did Emil's fromage montage, and my Annie loves participating in those. You know, we did the cookie stroll recently when we were there for our trip in December, and
Yeah.
she loves to do those things. So it's a lot of fun. But that day in particular was a nice day. The weather was nice. It wasn't too crowded, and we just had a really nice day at the Festival of the Arts. So it wasn't anything in particular, like any bucket list item, any extravagant experience that we booked. But that day there that we spent in Epcot was one of my top days in all of 2025.
Well, and you say that and nothing specifically great happened, but I do think you can't discredit those days that are just they're nice days. Like great weather, great crowds with people that
Right.
you love. I think that's what I love about going back to Walt Disney World over and over and over again. Like you just have great moments that are not particularly like astounding moments or nothing major happened, but it's just a great day and a great time together. And I think
Mhm.
that's what I'll remember as I get older in life, looking back on, like, that's exactly what I'll remember in life.
Mhm. And you'll have those days too when your kiddos are older, and I'm sure, I mean, chances are at least 1 or 2 of yours are gonna be huge Disney fans, if not all
They have
3.
to they better be, yeah, they better be.
If they still want Christmas gifts when they get older, they
Right?
better stick with it,
You
right?
wanna go on vacation, here's your options.
Yeah, this is where you're going.
Let's see, I
It was a
love
great
things like
day, though. It was a
yeah.
lot of fun. Like I said, nothing special. I mean, there's no standout moment, but we did just spend a great day at Festival of the Arts. We experienced Disney's boardwalk area. You know, we got those giant foot-long mozzarella sticks that they have now out on the boardwalk, and it also inspired me to make some solid plans for a date trip that will make it later on my list here that my husband and I ended up taking. So just a good time all the way
Yeah.
around. So I started the year off very strong with my Disney travels.
Yeah. Well, let's see, I don't have anything again until July, so do you
Okay.
wanna go through any filler time so we can keep a calendar going, or
No, go ahead. Well, I don't
okay,
know. Let me make sure. So, no, I have an honorable mention for July here, but it's not one of my top ones. So just making sure we
okay.
don't have the same thing because I don't remember if we were there the same time. We were there the same time
We
in
were
July.
there the same
Yes.
time,
We
yeah.
went to Geo 82 together.
We
Okay.
did, in
Yes.
fact, that's next on my
Okay.
list.
Okay. Spoiler. Sorry. I didn't know.
Yeah, so 82, definitely a highlight experience. I was so excited for the opening of this lounge. I Epcot is my favorite park. I love Spaceship Earth. I love the design. I've had a Spaceship Earth painting behind me on my background for a long
Mhm.
time. It's since moved. It's actually somehow I talked my husband into putting it into our living rooms.
Excellent.
Pretty big deal. But he loves Epcot too. In fact, we went together in November, but my first experience there was with Missy. We had a large group. They set our tables right behind one another. We had a nice spot in there and it was highly anticipated for me and it did not disappoint. I thought the food, even though it was small plates, was very good. And
Mhm.
I really enjoyed the beverage that I had. And you have a great view of the park. It was really a relaxing atmosphere, and it is the only adults only space on Walt Disney World's property. Even without children, I don't really think that necessarily added or took away from the ambiance. I understand exactly why they did it, but it was completely relaxing. But at the same time, I've had relaxing experiences where children are allowed also. So
Mhm.
that was just a really big highlight for me.
It was a really fun day, and I agree. It is such an exciting location to be in right there at Spaceship Earth with the view of
Mhm.
the park. There's really not a bad seat in the place, but we did have great seats right in the center. So that was a lot of fun. And their snacks were good. I remember that
Mhm.
day well. It was very enjoyable. I remember them telling us at the time that they had already needed to remove some trees that were kind of in the way, the view of the fireworks in the evening. And I've heard some changes have been made again since then with what the
Oh, wow.
fireworks views are considered. So I've been meaning to look into that a bit just so I know for future planning what's going on there. But yeah, that's a good one. That was a
Yeah,
really fun day.
that was fun.
And I get why they don't have kids in there also because just the whole vibe that they're trying to
Mhm.
have there, it's more relaxing. I love having kiddos around, but if you brought the kids in there, you'd have to, I think, have a whole different menu of
Yeah.
things available because you can't expect kids to sit there while the parents are eating their tuna and
Yeah.
sushi or whatever else you
Which was
have.
really good. Well, and it's a small space, and I think that
Mhm.
is part of it too, that having families or larger tables for families again, our party was split up, it would be very hard to fit into. It really is a lounge space, so it's not
Mhm.
restaurant size, it's very small.
Well, I'll jump ahead a little bit in the calendar all the way to March is as far as I'm getting at this point. um, so my husband and I do like to take a little bit of time to get away every year if we can. You know, our anniversary actually is this week. It's December 28th. And nobody told me when we were getting married how awful of a plan that would be for future travel because not only is it very difficult to try to find time to travel together that particular week, but it is much more expensive than it
Yeah.
is at other times of the year. So we've kind of gotten accustomed to trying to take a trip just for the two of us at some other point in the year. I remember years ago, the first time we were going to go on our own, we almost didn't. Because I was one of those moms, I didn't think I'd be able to leave my kids behind. And I certainly didn't think I'd be able to leave and do something fun for myself, God forbid. But it turns out I got over that
Yeah.
because I work very hard to provide for my kids and to help turn my children into contributing members of society. I feel like I have earned myself a little bit of joy on my own with my husband every year. So last year, we decided to try something different. We actually cruised with MSC for the first, no, it wasn't the first time, it was the second time. We had sailed with them out of Brooklyn, New York a few years ago. We did a 7-night Bahamas sailing, but that was on a different ship than we sailed on this time. It's one of their newer ships we were on. It was newer at the time. They have a newer, bigger one or two out at this point. I think it was the MSC Seashore.
Mhm.
The reason we decided to go with this cruise line, besides the fact that the pricing was just extremely reasonable for what was offered, was that we absolutely love their private island. We talked a bit about private islands here before. And of course, with this being a Disney Life podcast, Disney's private islands are always towards the top of our list. But I really love their Ocean K, or is it Key? God, I don't remember. That's terrible. We may need to edit that part out. I don't care. It's, you know, it used to be the kind of thing if anybody said Castaway K, I would like strangle them. It's Key, it's Key. But
Yeah.
then you have Perfect Day Coke. Okay, that gets
Yep.
confusing. And honestly, I've heard people from MSC say it both ways, but I think it's Ocean Key. I believe that would be the correct way to say it in the Bahamas. It's a beautiful island and it's actually a marine reserve. So they're doing a
Mm.
lot to preserve the area. They have some beautiful, very colorful homes set up there for the people who work there at the marine reserve to keep everything nice. I love the lagoon that they have there for swimming. They have some cabanas available for rent that are very reasonable price, far less expensive than Disney's, but also a less substantial cabana.
Mm.
It's not a full structure, you know, it's kind of just like the sides and you have some comfortable furniture in there and that sort of thing. So we really enjoy going to that island. I think my favorite thing about it is how it's similar to Royal Caribbean's Perfect Day at Coco Cay in that it doesn't just have a buffet. So I hate being in a bathing suit and having to stand in a line to get food. Like, I don't care where I am. Like, I
Right.
just don't like it. I'm
Yeah.
not comfortable. I mean, I don't really love eating in a bathing suit in the first place, but when you're on a beach day, okay, you're going to do it. But having to stand in a line and then find a spot at a picnic table, like you have to do at Cookies or Cookies too at Castaway, that's not my favorite part
Yeah.
about
I
that day.
understand.
We'll put it that way. I love that Royal Caribbean has those snack shacks all over. I think we may have talked about those a little bit when we did our Star of the Sea sailing in August. They have food trucks all over the place on MSC's island. So they do still have the buffet, and you can go line yourself up there and get all that food if you'd like. But the food trucks are open and they're open for a longer period of time than the buffet is. So you can get yourself some snacks throughout the day or go get a meal. And we just had a really, really nice day there. Just the two of us swimming in the lagoon and relaxing. The weather was not ideal. You know, people think Bahamas and they think hot weather. Kind of taking a risk January through March, early March down there with
Mhm.
what your weather's going to be. I could remember it being a very windy day. We were getting pelted with sand at
Oh,
times,
no.
but we did make the most of it and had a lot of fun. So if you're considering cruising with a cruise line that's not Disney, it may be worth taking a look at MSC because they do have a really great island destination in the Bahamas. Some of their itineraries even stay there overnight. So you get
Nice.
2 days there. I have not done that yet, but it's like kind of in the back of my mind. It's if I had a
Mhm.
list, it would be on it kind of thing. Like I don't keep a list because I don't my dad used to tell me my dad is such a perfectionist and anything I've ever seen him tackle, he's done amazingly. Except for stick to a schedule. Like it's always last minute, try to get things done. I can remember years ago remodeling mom's kitchen. It's the week of Christmas and mom doesn't have an oven, or it's, time to repaint the dining room and it's the week before my wedding and we're trying to get that done. So he's always told me, don't give yourself a deadline. You're just going to disappoint yourself. Do things as you can. So I don't have a bucket list like a lot of people do because I don't want to, in the end, be disappointed. I just want to do all the things all the time whenever I can do them. So, like, that's kind of my strategy with this kind of things. But I definitely do want to try to sail with MSC on one of their itineraries that stays overnight because I think that's a lot of fun. Also, I'll give you one tidbit about that, which is not my most memorable. I guess it's actually my worst travel memory
Oh,
of the year. We're making a list of those. Maybe we should have done a top five of a short one today of our worst memories of the year.
yeah.
But so we had booked kind of last minute on this, and I did not do much research, which is not like me at all. I normally am the type of person who I'm going to look for staterooms and cabins on YouTube and look online and in Facebook groups and see what people are saying about specific locations of ships so I can make sure I set myself up for an ideal situations. We booked some type of wow, I'm going back to last March, so it's hard to remember. I feel like it was a junior suite type situation. We knew the room was mostly going to be the same size as the other rooms, but we were going to have a huge balcony. So I was all about this, and I was very surprised at the reasonable pricing, how many of them were still available at the time I was booking, because like I said, it was pretty last minute. Well, then we got on the ship. So these rooms are one of the most bizarre balcony options I've ever seen because they are very, very long, like a very deep balcony. You have a ton of space, but about halfway out that length, the sides, like the walls on the side of you, get lower, and you'll just be looking right at the people who are in the
Mhm.
room, like in the balconies next to you. Like there's no privacy. And then you're looking over more of the ship, I guess, because of how wide the bottom of the ship is. And then it goes in. Uh, as it goes up, so you're actually looking out over people. So we're like, well, this is odd, but okay, no big deal. But then it was bedtime. And we discovered that we were right over a club
Oh,
with live music
no.
that started, I think, around 9 o'clock every night. I am not exaggerating. It sounded like the music was being played on a speaker loudly in our room. The walls were vibrating, the furniture in bed in our water glasses were vibrating. It was that kind of loud. It
Wow.
was insane. We tried to sleep and we just couldn't. And I was like, are we really those old people now who are going to have to go down to guest services and say, my room is too loud? But we did because we could not sleep. And it ended up that they were pretty much to capacity, but they did have a room available. And I could kind of tell when I went down to talk to them, she was like, what's your room number? And I told her, and she was like, oh, yeah. Like, okay, you're not the first one to do this.
Yeah.
They did not have a room of our same category or better and would not just let it, like, they didn't want to give us a lesser room. So they gave us a second room. So we ended up having all of our stuff and spending the days in the room. I think it was down on deck 9 is where this is located, in the room with the big balcony. And then when it was time to sleep, we'd gather our things and go up to the 10th floor a little farther forward. And that was our sleeping room.
That's funny.
It was
Wow.
the most ridiculous. And I had forgotten about it until just the other day when I was thinking about memories for this. And I was like, oh my word, I can't believe that it was that loud. But I do have a
Yeah.
video. Well, I'll have to show you sometime or send it to you so you could hear
Yeah.
how loud it was. And you could hear me giggling in the background of the video because it was just truly unbelievable how loud this room is. And I cannot believe that they continue to sell them to guests. I mean, I would be embarrassed if I ever recommended this room to somebody. So now I know. Stay
Right.
away. Stay
And it
away.
Really, it does amaze it's so important to check out deck plans because, first of all, it amazes me that they would even put a room above a nightclub
Mhm.
to begin with, because
Mhm.
no matter what, if you book a guarantee cabin, you could be stuck there and people are gonna
Right.
complain. Same thing with casinos. Disney Cruise Line does not have casinos on board, but for the cruise ships that do, the rooms underneath, avoid those at all costs, and if you look to see what's available, those are usually the last ones to go because I mean,
Mhm.
the casino is open late, late, late. So, it does amaze me that the way that they configure things, like, let's put all these somewhere where people aren't gonna be and, um, keep
It
rooms
made
far,
no
far
sense,
away.
and it was the strangest thing because so it must have been near I mean, I know I have a basic understanding of how ships are constructed. So
Mhm.
I know that we've got our, we're built in sections and we've got some watertight spaces and main dividing walls throughout it. And you could tell where that place was just by walking down the hallway when the music was playing. You'd hear it. There was like 4 staterooms in a row that it would be so loud as you're walking by them, and then bam, it was gone. You didn't hear it
Wow.
anymore. I wouldn't have believed if somebody came home and told me this story, I would have rolled my eyes at them.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds ridiculous. It was incredibly loud. So there you go. One of my worst moments, but we made the best of it. I don't know how things would have gone if they didn't have another room to like held and ready to move us to
Yeah.
because we would not have slept.
Wow.
But alrighty then. So
It
it's your turn, Rachel.
Uh, so my next one also happened in July. It was the Keys to the Kingdom tour, a tour that
Mhm.
I've always wanted to take at Walt Disney World inside the Magic Kingdom. It was nice because I knew the entire group that we toured with, so you don't have to worry about annoying anyone on your tour because you all know each other.
Or anyone annoying you if you're me.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
like
very
keeping it
true, that is
real.
very
Yeah.
true. And our guide, he took great care of us to make sure because it was July, but we started out as early as we could. But he made sure that when he stopped to talk to us, we were in the shade. We took plenty of breaks, but it was really neat just hearing stories, hearing things that I did not know, even though I'm a huge fan of park history, but hearing things and tidbits and information that I did not know at the time. And then, of course, going through the utilidors, going underground, seeing just how much thought and consideration went into achieving Walt's vision. So that that was definitely a highlight, something that I hope as my children get older, which they have to be 16, to be able to
Mhm.
take them on and that they will enjoy it too. So it was fun, and I got to experience it for my first time with Missy's daughter, Annie, who had just turned 16, and that was a highlight for
Yes.
her, I know.
It absolutely was. Yes. And now they've been asking to go on more tours. When we were just down last week, at Epcot, we did the Living with the Land with the shimmering greenhouses, and
Mhm.
I had well, why haven't we done the Seeds tour? And we did do the Seeds tour when Gracie was little and I was pregnant with Annie, and I thought, well, I guess it's been a while since Annie
Yeah.
is now, heading for 17, and we haven't done the Behind the Seeds tour, but it's a very interesting thing, and I think maybe I'll make some time in a future trip for that because that one's relatively inexpensive compared
Mhm.
to Disney's other tours, so it's a cute one. Plus, it's an Epcot, so that's great.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll jump ahead to June now, moving
Okay.
through the year. And we've talked about it pretty much at length here on this podcast in one episode. And it was my cruise on the Disney Dream out of Fort Lauderdale this summer. It was a 5-night sailing, which was ideal for us because it gave us time to drive down and drive back because it was again, Disney had a lot of discounted, restricted rates out, more than we had ever seen any other summer, I think. So this was kind of a not budgeted trip for us because of our other plans and things we have going on with my daughter's high school graduation and other upcoming plans. So it worked out perfectly for us that there was a 5-night option. I don't think I would have said, yeah, let's make the drive for a 4-night. And I certainly would not have for a 3-night. So I love that they have that 5-night option out of Fort Lauderdale.
Mhm.
And if it was a 7-night, we wouldn't have had time to drive on either end because my husband wouldn't have made it back for work. So it worked out ideal for us, and it really set my standards high again for Disney Cruise Line. I admit that The dining service teams in recent years have seemed greatly overworked and stressed to me. And, they try not to show it and they certainly never, ever, ever complain about it. But the service has just gotten much slower all around. And I feel like Disney and their rotational dining used to be something that you'd hear about all the time in the early 2000s when it was a new thing. And it just wasn't anything really to boast about anymore, but this
Mhm.
cruise redeemed it for me. We had an absolutely incredible server. Thinking back, I kind of laugh at the first night when he came in. I was thinking like, "Oh, here we go. Am I even going to remember this guy's name because like they're so scarcely seen." And by the end of that meal, I thought I'm never going to forget this man. He is absolutely incredible. The best server we've ever had. I've recommended him to so many people since then, but really just that entire trip celebrating my daughter's graduation and having us all down there. We had some friends travel along with us, and we talked about it here in detail. The Dream is my favorite ship. The Dream class is my favorite class of Disney ships. And it was just an excellent summer vacation for us. So, that memory as a whole, I guess if I had to pick one thing about that specific cruise to be my favorite, it was our sea day when we spent most of the day out at Satellite Falls. It's my favorite spot on that ship, and we were able to just relax there and have a nice, beautiful weather. So that overall, that whole trip was a great memory for this year.
Yeah, sounds nice. So I have 2 quick honorable mentions just because I'm gonna jump from one month to the other, but an honorable
Okay.
mention for me would have been in July. Our last day there, I know several people flew out really early, and I had a late flight that night, so I spent the day at Animal Kingdom by myself, and it
Hmm.
was just a really great day. I got everything on my list done that I wanted to get done, the animal trails, everything, because I did not have to, especially when you're traveling with young kids and you take restroom breaks all the time, it feels like. So didn't have to worry about that. And then I spent a good hour at Nomad Lounge while it rained. So, and I was outside and under the cover of the porch area. It was just a nice day, a nice way to relax and end the trip by myself before flying out. But my next one, I'm going to hop ahead to my November trip, and my honorable mention, and I have to say it because we made such a big deal about it, was seeing the Beach Boys with Uncle Jesse.
Yes. Yes.
I it was just it was a fun concert, and I know it's kinda weird that it's only making an honorable mention, but I'll always have the memory of seeing that, and I always wanted to, and several years ago, there is a music festival that used to happen over the summertime in my hometown, and, Beach Boys were there, and Uncle Jesse was actually there too, but I wasn't, so we haven't been to that festival in several years, and, so I was always disappointed that I did not get to see him play, but this year, that was definitely an honorable mention for me. But moving on to November, so one of them, kind of like what you said with the Disney Dream, just an overall experience, but I would say visiting Epic Universe with my family, that was just a great 2 days that we had there. I stayed away from a lot of spoilers. Now, we knew a lot of things about Super Nintendo World, having gone to the one in Japan already, so I knew what 2 of those attractions were like at least. But I think my kids really enjoyed, like, "Mom, what's this like?" And it's like, "I don't know. This is something that new that we all get to experience together." And I think that
Hmm.
made it even more special because, like I said, I really tried to stay away from any spoilers on any attractions. I wanted to walk into it fresh and not having anything. The only one that I did kind of look up spoilers from was the, Battle for the Ministry just because I wanted to see if it had a drop, because if it did, I was not gonna put Meredith on it, but, other than that, I think the kids really enjoyed the aspect of all of this is new for all of us, and I thought Universal did a fantastic job. It was a very immersive experience, I think much more so than their other parks are, and, we can't wait to visit again.
So I do have a short honorable mention list also, and Epic
Okay.
Universe is on mine because we can't let the year close out with us both visiting a brand new theme park somewhere and not mentioning it. So I was down just for the preview in May, which we did talk about here in a previous episode. It's a fantastic park. And again, if I had a list, it would be on it. I want to get the kids there because they weren't able to go with me when I went down just for that brief trip see the preview, but it really is just an outstanding theme park. Even if you don't necessarily have a ton of knowledge on what each of their is it portals? Is that what we call them? Each
Yeah,
of their
yeah, the
lands
portals,
are.
yep.
it's still something that even without previous knowledge of what any of that is, you could still absolutely appreciate each of those lands. So, yeah, honorable mention to that from me as well. So, I do have one more on my list. Is it my turn?
It is your turn,
Right.
yes.
Okay, it's my turn. Of course, any year that there is a brand new Disney Cruise Line ship, that is certainly going to make my list of highlights for the year. So, my cruise on board the brand new Disney Destiny in November was absolutely one of my top 5 moments of the year. It was fun to do our live recording from there. So, if you haven't listened to that yet, you can go back and check that out because we did record on board. I never followed up though after that. I had been excited the day we recorded because we were going to be dining at the Feast of the Pride Lands that night, and I was really excited for that Lion King themed meal. I was actually a little disappointed in it because it wasn't what I expected. Entertainment was amazing. The talent of the musicians who participated was just incredible. But I had really been hoping to see something a little with maybe some characters in it and not just storytelling. So I've heard that same feedback from a lot of cruisers that I've talked to since then. So I don't know if maybe Disney Cruise Line would consider changing that in the future, or if maybe just now people know what to expect so they won't go in there disappointed. I think just with us having the previous experiences on The Wish and Treasure, having characters from Frozen and characters from Coco be in those respective restaurants, everyone just naturally assumed you were going to see somebody from The Lion King in there. So for me, it was a little
Right.
sad that we didn't, but overall, absolutely love the Disney Destiny. Would not hesitate to cruise again on her again someday. In fact, we will be cruising on the Destiny together, Rachel and I both in April. So that's something
Yeah.
exciting for our look ahead this year. So definitely that was my last on my top 5 list. I do have a few honorable mentions also. Love sailing on the Star of the Seas in August. That was a lot of fun. Definitely appreciate Royal Caribbean and the cruise ships that they offer. So that was a great cruise. And Rachel had mentioned our July trip to Disney World, which was a lot of fun. And again, I just returned from there last week for my holiday trip. I think my holiday trip could have possibly bumped out the Festival of the Arts trip from last year for one of the top 5 spots, except for my husband wasn't with us in December.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't put that above. We did really miss having him with us, but it was a fantastic trip. So I mean, overall, what a year. We are
Right.
both so fortunate and blessed to be able to do the traveling that we do, to have the Disney friends that we have that are that they make this possible. I mean, we couldn't go stay in a cabin just on our own with our families, but when you're
Never.
splitting the cost with other people, it makes it much more doable. And I mean, and we have a pretty ginormously exciting experience coming up for us on the
Yes.
Disney Destiny this year. I don't think we've said it here before, and maybe we should wait because in next week's episode, we'll be talking about things that we're looking forward to coming in 2026 and the new experiences in Disney's parks and resorts that Disney will be rolling out for us next year. So maybe we should save that announcement for that.
That sounds great. We can do that. So I do want to mention just one more on my list really quick. And I had to, of course, just get in another thing with my kids. It said several things about going out with friends. I mentioned going to Epic with my family, but having all 3 of my children finally get their all first haircuts at the Harmony Barbershop at Magic Kingdom. By all means, the highlight. I did not cry. I was very surprised. I really thought with the last one that I would. I'm not
Hmm.
particularly too much of a nostalgic or sentimental person, but there's something about Walt Disney World that makes me super nostalgic and sentimental.
Hmm.
So, but I just parents, if you want something special for your kids, I really think having a first haircut there was, I mean, I managed to hold off on this one until she was 3 to get a haircut, but we were getting to the point where her hair would get in her sleeves when we were trying to put shirts on and everything. So we were at that point, but I was like, we're going to wait, we're going to wait, we're going to wait. And it was a very special experience. And of course, Walt Disney World makes it special for you. So I think that's a memory, and I've got all of their hats and all their certificates and everything like that. I put away, I have a memory box for each child, and That was truly, truly the highlight of my year was just getting that final one in and knowing that all 3 of my kids had their first haircuts there.
That is super special, and if I was a jealous person, I would kinda be a little jealous because I remember wanting to try to do that with my kids, and for, a list of reasons, it didn't ever happen for either of them, and I do remember my husband once getting a haircut at the barber shop because he didn't have time to do it before vacation, and he looked ridiculous, so he went in there and got a haircut and got pixie dusted, which was pretty hilarious. But
Yeah.
that really is a special experience, and, when you stop to think about it, that's another thing that I kinda worry could disappear eventually because how random is it to have a barbershop inside of a park? But it's just
And they
something
are
that's
licensed.
always
You
been
can see
there.
their licenses on the walls and everything.
Mhm.
So, I mean, this is a legitimate barbershop, but
Yeah,
yes,
it's
it
the
is.
real deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really hope it never goes away. I would love to see, my future grandkids, get their first
Wow,
haircuts
you're
there.
see, you can't be making lists like that. Wow,
Yeah, I
that's a
know,
big one.
because my children will love it and we will go.
Well, good luck to you with that. I hope it
Yeah,
happens. I
thanks.
would love to be there.
Yeah.
I'll try to plan around that when the
Okay,
time
sounds
comes.
good.
And someday we will look back and watch this and laugh and say, "Where did the time go?" Because we
Yeah,
will be there before we know it, I'm
yeah,
afraid. It flies by. But you know what they say? Time flies when you're having fun. And we certainly have a lot of fun. And we're thankful to all of you, all of our listeners, for being here and listening with us. And for any of you who join us in any of our travels, thank you for doing that. It is a lot of fun. And again, I won't get too much into next year and our group travels coming up quite yet, but we'll
yeah.
save that for the next episode.
Yeah, that'll be the next episode. So, again, thank you all for listening. And if you would like to be featured on this show, if you had a trip recently and you want to tell us about it, or if you have a question that you would like to have answered, we have 2 ways to contact us. We have 2 email addresses. The first one is podcast@storybookdestinations.com. And our next one is a Disney Life at storybookdestinations.com. We also are available on several social media platforms. We have a Facebook group called A Disney Life, and our Instagram and TikTok handles are both Disney Life, a Disney Life pod. So please join us there, see all the things that we post throughout the week, some shorts and things like that to keep you excited for your next episode. So thank you all so very much for joining us. And Missy, I am looking forward to our upcoming travels and review of 2026 and everything that we do have. Looking forward to that. So that will be a fun episode too.
Yes, here's hoping it is a great and magical year for us because there's a lot to look forward to.
And Happy New Year, everyone. And thank you so much for listening. And we will see you in 2026.